There is a power that does not roar, does not boast, and does not beg to be seen. It walks quietly through the world, yet it shakes the very ground beneath it. That power is the silent strength of women. It is not always wrapped in loudness or crowned in fame. Sometimes it is found in the tired hands of a mother, the steady gaze of a daughter, the unbroken faith of a wife, or the unshaken will of a woman who has learned to rise, no matter how many times she has been told to sit down. There is something divine about a woman's silence. It is not emptiness. It is not weakness. It is the space where storms are tamed, where pain is folded into patience, and where dreams are whispered into destiny. The world has often mistaken her quiet for consent, her gentleness for surrender, and her tears for defeat. But the truth is, she has been learning the language of resilience in every sigh she has ever released. A woman knows the art of becoming light in darkness. She knows how to bend without breaking, how to bleed without bitterness, how to hope when hope seems foolish. She carries centuries of strength in her bones, the stories of her foremothers stitched into her soul. Each one before her has walked through fire, and she wears their ashes as wisdom. The silent power of women is not born from what they say, but from what they endure and transform. There are women who have faced rooms that tried to silence them. They have felt their words caught in their throats, their worth questioned, their courage underestimated. Yet somehow, even without applause, they have kept building, creating, nurturing, and forgiving. They have been the unseen architects of nations, the healers of homes, the keepers of peace in places where chaos wanted to reign. They have carried the world in their arms while the world looked elsewhere. Her silence has saved more lives than her voice ever could. In that quiet, she has prayed for those who wronged her. In that quiet, she has gathered strength when the world turned cold. In that quiet, she has found the courage to walk away when staying meant losing herself. Do not mistake her stillness for absence. She is simply learning the rhythm of her next rebirth. There is a fire that does not burn out in her, even when the world blows hard against it. It is the fire of purpose. It is the glow of grace. You may not see it in her words, but you will feel it in her presence. Her silence speaks in a language only the soul can hear, a language of compassion, endurance, and divine timing. She knows that power does not always need an audience. Sometimes it just needs truth. There are women who have walked through heartbreak and kept their dignity intact. Women who have been told they were not enough, and yet continued to love themselves louder than the lies. Women who have worked twice as hard to be seen half as much, yet still chose to shine. Their power is not in their struggle, but in the way they smile after it. She has cried quietly in bathrooms, and then walked out as if the world had never wounded her. She has stood in rooms where her ideas were stolen, her dreams dismissed, yet she found another way to rise, because the silent power of a woman does not ask for permission. It simply becomes. She becomes light when the world turns gray. She becomes prayer when words are not enough. She becomes strength when there is no one left to lean on. Her silence has a heartbeat. It beats with purpose. It beats with faith. It beats with memory. Every woman carries within her the echo of every other woman who ever refused to be broken. The world often measures strength by how loud one can shout, how high one can climb, how much one can conquer. But a woman measures her strength differently. She measures it in how much she can forgive without forgetting herself, in how deeply she can love without losing her boundaries, in how gently she can hold another's pain without letting it drown her own. Her power lies not in dominating but in transforming. She turns loss into learning, rejection into redirection, pain into poetry. There are women who have been mothers to those who were not their own. Women who have carried entire communities on their backs. Women who have stood between destruction and hope, whispering to the wind, "Not today." Their silence has protected generations. Their quiet sacrifices have shaped the future. And even if no one applauds, heaven keeps record of every tear they turned into triumph. Her silence is her armor. It is not the absence of words, it is the presence of wisdom. She knows when to speak and when to listen, when to fight and when to walk away. She understands that the loudest thunder comes after the calm. Her quietness is not weakness. It is strategy. Because she has learned that not every battle is worth her energy. Not every comment deserves her response. And not every storm needs her to stand in the rain. Sometimes victory is in the silence that follows understanding. She has learned the sacredness of waiting. The world rushes, but she roots. The world demands, but she discerns. The world shouts, but she listens. And in her listening, she hears what others miss. The whisper of God, the truth behind noise, the voice of her own intuition guiding her toward peace. She knows that power does not always roar. Sometimes power is the choice to walk away from the fight. Sometimes it is the decision to keep loving when hate would be easier. Sometimes it is the grace to let go when holding on would hurt too much. And sometimes it is the silence that refuses to prove anything to anyone. Every woman carries a garden inside her. Some flowers bloom in sunlight, others in the dark, but all are rooted in strength. She waters her garden with faith, patience, and quiet determination. Her silence is not empty, it is fertile. Out of it grows wisdom, compassion, and courage. The world may not see her planting, but it will one day marvel at her harvest. There is power in the way she walks into a room, not to be noticed, but to bring calm. There is power in the way she looks at others, not to judge, but to understand. There is power in the way she stands, not to prove herself, but to remind the world that she is already enough. Her silence holds dignity, her stillness carries depth. She remembers the time she was overlooked, undervalued, underestimated. She remembers the nights she cried quietly, wondering if her existence mattered. But she also remembers the morning she got up anyway. And that was her victory. Her silent power is built on small victories, unseen moments, private triumphs. The world celebrates the crown, but she celebrates the courage it took to wear it. There is a rhythm in her resilience. She bends, but she does not break. She falls, but she does not fade. She is a survivor not because she has avoided pain, but because she has learned to dance with it until it turns into purpose. The silent power of women is not about control. It is about creation. She creates peace where there was chaos, love where there was judgment, strength where there was fear. There are women who have walked through silence not by choice but by circumstance. Silence by culture, by fear, by injustice. Yet even then, their silence became protest. Their endurance became revolution. They carried the weight of worlds on their shoulders and still managed to sing lullabies to the future. Their power did not come from being heard. It came from being unbroken. She knows that the world can be unkind, but she chooses to be kind anyway. She knows that love can wound, but she loves anyway. She knows that truth can be heavy, but she carries it anyway. That is her power. To keep choosing light even when the night is long. The silent power of a woman is timeless. It is the same power that raised nations, healed families, inspired art, and birthed generations. It is the same power that prays for her children while the world sleeps, that forgives those who wronged her without an apology, that keeps believing when logic says it's over. She is not waiting to be rescued. She has already rescued herself 1,000 times in silence. Every time she stands up after being knocked down, her silence speaks. Every time she loves again after being betrayed, her silence speaks. Every time she forgives without fanfare, her silence speaks. And what it says is this: "You cannot take from me what I have built within me." She walks with the quiet confidence of someone who has met her own soul and found peace there. She knows her worth does not come from what she owns or who approves. It comes from the sacred knowing that she is enough, whole, complete, and worthy, just as she is. Her silence is her sanctuary, her peace, her prayer. There are days she does not feel strong, days she doubts, days she cries in secret. But even then, her silence is powerful, because in that stillness she heals. In that stillness she resets. In that stillness she gathers herself again. She does not need to announce her comeback. The sunrise does not either. The world will one day understand that the quiet ones are not the weakest. They are the wisest. The women who do not scream are not voiceless. They are grounded. The women who walk away are not giving up. They are choosing peace. There is majesty in restraint, royalty in self-respect, and grace in letting silence speak louder than anger ever could. So, to every woman who has been told to quiet down, know this: your silence is not submission, it is sacred power. The world may not always understand it, but it will always feel it. Because your presence changes things. Your strength stabilizes things. Your heart heals things. And even when no one sees you, the universe moves differently because of you. You are the calm in the storm. You are the pause before the breakthrough. You are the whisper that reminds others they can survive. Your silence does not make you small. It makes you profound. So, stand tall in your stillness. Walk with quiet power. Let your silence teach louder than your words. You are not invisible. You are infinite. You are not weak. You are woven from resilience. You are not forgotten. You are written into the fabric of history, in ink too sacred to fade. There is nothing louder than a woman who has found peace in her silence. Her power does not demand attention, it commands respect. Her strength does not need to be proven. It is simply known. She is the song beneath the noise, the still water beneath the storm, the heartbeat that keeps the world alive. And when she finally speaks, the world listens, because her words are born from a silence that has seen, felt, and endured everything, and still chosen love. That is the silent power of women. Eternal, divine, unshakable. True strength in women is often expressed through silence, not sound. The world has been trained to notice the loud, to measure power by the noise it makes, by the roar of command, or the flash of defiance. Yet, a woman's power often lives in the spaces between words, in the pause between pain and reaction, in the calm she carries when everything around her is chaos. Her silence is not a retreat but a revelation, not emptiness but essence. She does not need to declare her worth, because she embodies it with every act of patience, every steady breath she takes when the world pushes her to break. There is a kind of beauty in the way she holds her tongue, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. She knows when to speak, but more importantly, she knows when silence is stronger than speech. Her silence is a shield forged from years of understanding that not every battle requires a voice. Some are won with stillness, with discernment, with the power to walk away from what does not deserve her energy. She does not need to shout to be heard. Her energy speaks before her words do. There is something almost sacred about the way she sits in her quiet confidence. When others rush to react, she chooses to reflect. When others demand attention, she commands respect. Her power is not in proving herself, but in knowing herself. In her silence, she gathers power. The kind that is not borrowed, not granted, but grown from within. She remembers the times when her voice was ignored, and she learned that stillness can echo louder than speech. She remembers the moments she was underestimated, and she let her actions tell the story her words never needed to. Every act of restraint became a lesson, every moment of composure a victory. Her silence is not submission, it is control, the quiet kind that shifts energy without resistance. There is a rhythm to her strength, a steady pulse that does not depend on applause or recognition. She has learned that those who truly hold power do not waste it proving it exists. She has faced storms and stayed still enough to listen to her intuition guiding her through. She has endured pain without letting it poison her, betrayal without letting it define her, disappointment without letting it destroy her. And through it all, she has spoken more through her grace than her words ever could. The world often misunderstands this kind of strength. It calls her silence indifference, her gentleness fragility, her composure coldness. But those who truly see her, those who listen closely, can hear the strength beneath her quiet. They can feel it in the way she looks at life. Steady, unwavering, sure. She is the proof that power does not need to announce itself. It simply exists, it simply is. It simply endures through silence that holds centuries of strength within it. A woman's calm endurance can change more than her words ever could. There is a quiet force that moves through her when she chooses not to be shaken by the noise around her. The world often expects her to react, to defend, to explain, to prove herself again and again. Yet she has learned that real transformation comes not from resistance but from grace. Her endurance is not born from weakness, but from deep understanding. The knowing that some storms are not meant to be fought but outlasted. She carries the wisdom of patience, the discipline of peace, and the strength to remain grounded when life pulls at every edge of her spirit. Her calm is not stillness without struggle. It is stillness built from struggle. It is the posture of someone who has felt the fire and decided to rise, not rage. In her calm, there is clarity. She knows that emotion is energy, and she chooses to channel it rather than be consumed by it. She lets others shout, argue, and misunderstand, while she listens to something quieter. Her intuition, her truth, her purpose. That calm becomes her weapon, her shield, her language. People often mistake it for passivity, but they do not see the work happening beneath the surface, the storm she is taming within herself, so that peace may live outside of her. Her endurance is not merely surviving, it is mastering herself in moments when chaos demands reaction. There is a sacred dignity in the way she endures. She does not run from the discomfort. She faces it with open eyes and steady breath. She understands that endurance does not mean staying in pain, but learning through it. It means allowing time to teach her what anger cannot. Her calm becomes contagious, a healing presence in a world addicted to noise and reaction. She reminds those around her that strength does not always scream, that influence does not always announce itself, and that transformation begins quietly, like dawn before daylight. Her endurance becomes her silent revolution. She changes situations not by control but by consistency, not by shouting but by showing up with grace again and again. She softens the hardness around her not by force, but by example. Her peace confuses those who expected her to crumble. Her patience disarms those who tried to provoke her. And her quiet faith turns impossible moments into living proof that power exists even in gentleness. Through her calm endurance, she teaches others the meaning of true courage. The courage to stay centered when everything tries to pull you apart. The courage to trust timing over tension. And the courage to believe that peace is not the absence of struggle, but the mastery of it. She has learned that she does not need to fight every battle. Some she wins simply by not reacting, by keeping her soul steady while the world trembles around her. Silence is not weakness. It is wisdom wrapped in grace. A woman who understands this carries a kind of strength that cannot be measured in words or witnessed through noise. Her silence is her sanctuary, her sacred ground, where she gathers herself when the world becomes too loud. She has learned that silence is not an absence but a presence, a space where her thoughts can breathe, where her soul can speak, and where truth can reveal itself without interference. She does not remain silent because she cannot speak. She remains silent because she knows the value of words that come from reflection, not reaction. Her silence is the wisdom of experience, the grace of restraint, the discipline of knowing that everything does not deserve her energy. She understands that the loudest voice is not always the most powerful one. In her silence, she holds peace, and in that peace she holds power. She listens deeply, not just to others but to herself, to that small, steady voice inside her that tells her when to move, when to wait, and when to let go. Her silence becomes her teacher, showing her that sometimes clarity comes only when the world quiets down. It teaches her that wisdom is not in knowing everything but in choosing what truly matters. Her silence is a form of communication that only the wise can understand. It says, "I see, I know, and I choose peace." When the world misunderstands her, she does not rush to defend herself. She has learned that truth does not always need an explanation. Her silence becomes her armor, protecting her from the pull of unnecessary battles. She trusts that time will reveal what her words do not. People may mistake her calm for surrender, but she knows it takes far greater strength to be still than to strike. Her silence is not weakness. It is awareness. It is her way of rising above what is small, of keeping her dignity when others lose theirs. Grace lives in her silence. It is the quiet confidence of knowing who she is even when others try to define her. It is the gentle power that keeps her centered when the world spins in chaos. Her silence does not mean she feels less. It means she has learned to feel deeply without letting those feelings control her. It is the mark of a woman who has outgrown the need to prove, who has found peace in presence rather than validation. In her silence, she becomes a mirror for others. They see in her what they lack in themselves: composure, self-trust, balance. Her silence holds the echoes of everything she has survived, every truth she has carried, every prayer she has whispered. It is the sound of wisdom maturing, the quiet power of understanding when to speak and when to simply stand tall in grace. The quiet resilience of women builds families, generations, and nations. It is the kind of strength that does not demand to be seen, but is felt in every corner of life, where warmth, love, and balance exist. This resilience lives in the hands that cook, comfort, heal, and create. It lives in the eyes that watch over loved ones while carrying their own unseen struggles. It is not the kind of strength that breaks through walls, but the kind that holds them together. Women carry the world not by force, but by faith, not by domination, but by devotion. Their quiet endurance has shaped homes, guided children into purpose, and mended the broken pieces of others while keeping their own hearts steady. It is through this unspoken resilience that entire generations have been raised on hope instead of fear, on patience instead of panic, on love instead of resentment. She does not wear her strength like armor. She wears it like skin, natural and unnoticeable, until you see what she has survived. Her resilience is not always recognized, yet it sustains the very fabric of families and communities. She shows up every day, whether the world applauds her or not. She gives her time, her care, her energy, even when no one sees the cost of it. And still she continues, not because she must, but because she believes in the quiet miracles that come from persistence. Her sacrifices are rarely spoken of, yet they become the foundation others stand upon. When the weight of life grows heavy, she learns to bend instead of break. Her resilience is not loud, but it is alive. It flows through her actions, through the way she keeps showing up for others, while quietly rebuilding herself. She finds a way to turn every wound into wisdom, every loss into learning. She understands that to nurture is not to be weak, but to have the courage to keep giving even when the world takes more than it gives back. Her resilience builds legacies that outlive her name. Children who remember her faith, families that grow from her love, and futures that are stronger because she never stopped believing. This quiet power is what keeps nations standing. Behind every story of greatness, there is a woman whose endurance made it possible. She has carried dreams that were not her own, lifted burdens that were never acknowledged, and turned chaos into order with nothing but grace and determination. Her resilience is the invisible thread that weaves generations together, holding everything in balance, even when it threatens to fall apart. She does not need to shout about what she has done. Her work is written in the hearts she's healed, in the homes she's kept standing, in the hope she's passed on without ever asking for thanks. The world may forget her name, but it will never forget the peace she planted, the love she gave, and the strength she carried in silence. In her stillness, a woman hears her purpose louder than the world's noise. The world around her is filled with constant voices telling her who to be, what to do, and how to live. Yet within her, there is a softer, older voice, one that whispers truth through quiet moments. It speaks when she allows herself to pause, to breathe, to listen to her own heartbeat. It tells her that she is more than her roles, her mistakes, her expectations. It reminds her that her worth is not determined by comparison but by creation. In stillness, she meets herself again, beyond the noise of obligation and the rush of survival. Her purpose does not shout, it unfolds gently, waiting for her to slow down enough to notice it. She understands that silence is not the absence of action, but the presence of awareness. In the calm between her thoughts, she finds clarity about what truly matters. She begins to see that she does not need to chase her destiny, she needs to align with it. The world rushes and runs, demanding louder, faster, more, but she knows her strength lives in the quiet decision to move with intention, not impulse. In that stillness, she discovers the wisdom to know when to hold on and when to let go. She finds that every answer she has ever searched for was waiting inside her, buried beneath the noise of fear and doubt. Stillness becomes her sanctuary. It is where she reconnects with her faith, her intuition, and her spirit. It is where she remembers that her life does not need to look like anyone else's. She learns to listen not just with her ears, but with her soul. She feels the guidance of something greater than herself, moving through her in small, graceful ways. In the timing of events, in the lessons of pain, in the beauty of patience. Through stillness, she begins to hear her purpose calling her to rise higher, to serve deeper, to live truer. Her stillness is not passivity. It is power under control. It is the moment before movement, the gathering of strength before flight. She knows that every great transformation begins in quiet. The seed before the bloom, the thought before the act, the whisper before the word. In a world that glorifies constant motion, she finds her authority in presence. She understands that to hear her purpose, she must first silence the world's expectations. And when she does, she begins to walk in a rhythm that feels like truth. Her stillness teaches her trust. Trust in divine timing, trust in her own journey, trust that she does not need to force what is meant for her. The noise may try to drown her out, but she carries within her a sound stronger than chaos. The sound of purpose awakening. The sound of her soul remembering why it came here. The most powerful transformation begins when a woman stops proving and starts becoming. For too long, she has been told that her value must be earned, that she must explain her choices, justify her emotions, and defend her dreams. She has been taught to measure her worth by how well she fits into someone else's definition of success, how gracefully she meets expectations, how effortlessly she can balance everything without breaking. But the day she grows tired of performing, the day she decides to stop chasing approval, something sacred begins to unfold within her. It is a quiet awakening, not loud or dramatic, but steady and irreversible. It is the moment she realizes that her life does not need to be validated to be valuable, that her becoming is not a performance but a process. In that moment, she reclaims herself piece by piece, memory by memory, truth by truth. The need to prove is born from fear, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being unseen. But when she stops proving, she begins to see that her worth was never in question. She starts to walk lighter because she no longer carries the weight of other people's opinions. Her steps become slower but surer, not rushed by comparison but guided by conviction. She no longer seeks to fit into molds that were never shaped for her. She learns to shape her own. Every time she says no without guilt, every time she chooses rest over approval, every time she honors her truth instead of chasing validation, she steps closer to her becoming. Her transformation is not about changing who she is but remembering who she has always been. The world may call it rebellion, but it is actually alignment with her essence, her intuition, her soul. She begins to see that the most powerful thing she can do is simply be herself without apology. She starts to move differently, speak differently, and see differently. There is no longer a need to impress because she understands that her authenticity is her authority. What she once sought from others, she now finds within herself peace, pride, purpose. Becoming is not easy. It requires unlearning the lies she has carried for years, the false stories told to her about what makes her worthy, lovable, or enough. It means sitting with discomfort, facing the parts of herself she once hid, forgiving the versions of her that did not know better. It means breaking cycles of silence, shame, and self-doubt that have passed through generations. But every time she confronts her pain instead of running from it, she grows roots deeper than fear. Every time she chooses to honor her own rhythm instead of forcing herself into the world's pace, she grows wings lighter than expectation. Her becoming is not about arrival. It is about awakening. It is the realization that she does not have to earn her place in this world. She already belongs. She stops asking for permission to exist as she is. She stops waiting for recognition before believing in her own brilliance. She learns that the validation she once begged for from others means nothing compared to the peace that comes from self-acceptance. And so she begins to live not to prove, but to express, not to impress, but to expand, not to meet expectations, but to fulfill purpose. In her becoming, she starts to embrace her imperfections as proof of her humanity. She no longer hides the cracks in her soul. She lets the light shine through them. She understands that she is allowed to evolve, to change her mind, to outgrow what no longer nourishes her. Her transformation is not about perfection. It is about presence. She learns to be fully here, fully real, fully herself. In a world that celebrates imitation, her authenticity becomes her quiet revolution. The woman who stops proving does not need to be loud to be powerful. Her power is subtle, steady, and self-assured. It radiates from her presence, from the way she occupies space without apology. When she enters a room, she does not demand attention. She draws it effortlessly, because she has become peace. There is no longer tension between who she is and who she thinks she should be. She is whole, not because the world says so, but because she decided to be. Her transformation ripples outward. The women who watch her begin to remember their own worth. They see in her what is possible when one dares to live unapologetically. Her freedom becomes an invitation for others to find theirs. She teaches through example that life's truest beauty is not in perfection but in authenticity. She shows that the most radiant woman is the one who no longer seeks to shine for others but glows from within. The journey from proving to becoming is not swift. It takes courage to stop explaining yourself in a world that constantly demands justification. It takes faith to trust your path when others cannot see your vision. But she walks that path anyway, barefoot and brave, learning that peace is the real measure of success. The things she once chased no longer hold her hostage. The validation, the applause, the approval. They lose their power over her because she has found something greater, the still certainty that she is already enough. She learns to speak not from a place of need, but from a place of knowing. Her words no longer seek agreement, they carry truth. Her silence no longer hides her thoughts. It protects her energy. She no longer exhausts herself trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding her. Her worth does not rise or fall based on who stays or who leaves. She realizes that proving is the language of insecurity, while becoming is the language of peace. The most powerful transformation happens quietly. It is in the small decisions. Choosing truth over approval, peace over performance, love over fear. It is in the moment she looks at herself and says, "I am enough, even now, even here." It is in the moments she forgives herself for the times she tried too hard to be seen, too hard to be accepted, too hard to be loved. It is in the freedom of no longer needing to be perfect to be proud. She is not becoming someone new. She is returning to who she has always been beneath the noise, whole, wise, and worthy. When she stops proving, she starts living. Her laughter returns, not as performance but as prayer. Her steps slow not out of hesitation but out of reverence. Her eyes soften because she no longer looks for approval in others. She has found it in herself. She realizes that the greatest success is not in being admired, but in being at peace. Her transformation is not loud, yet it changes everything she touches. For in her becoming, she becomes the mirror through which others remember the truth, that they too were never meant to prove, only to be.